She's a change manager at Suncorp. I met her about 2 months ago. Sharon Connolly was running a change management kind of get together, and we're sitting beside each other and having a bit of talk. And she started to explain how she was using Copilot in her role to help and support her. And I loved some of her stories and asked, would she please come and speak and talk to us around what are the things that she's actually doing live with Copilot. So I'm going to bring up, she can tell you a bit about her history and where she's going, and I'm going to hand over the clicker so that she can join in and speaking. And if anyone has any questions, I'll keep the microphone with me and you can ask. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kirsty. I'm going to say there's probably wine involved that night, and I speaking wine not my thing.
Do we need to get you more wine to keep speaking?
Probably. Yes. So I'm just going to take you through today just a little bit about how I came to start using Copilot. It's been an interesting journey at Suncorp, but then I want to take you through some of the benefits that I'm finding as I've gotten better with Copilot, how I'm actually using it as a change manager, and some actual use cases that maybe you could use in your areas or you can share with other people, and plenty of time for discussion as well. So first, a little bit about me. As Kirsty said, my name's PJ. I'm a change manager with Suncorp. I've been a change manager there for about 6 years. With my role there, I get to deal with people from all parts of our organisation, from our frontline teams that are helping our customers in their times of need, our tech teams that are playing with the latest tech and throwing it out there with gay abandon is what I like to say, right through to our strategic leaders that are trying to drive us in new directions. I also co-chair our community of practice, which is a group of like-minded people that includes actual change managers across our organisation, as well as leaders and other people who are just interested in change. We meet once a month where we talk through best practice, we share case studies, we share ideas, basically trying to uplift our skill level across and our change muscle across the organisation. When I'm not working, I love to travel. So not quite as exciting as some of yours.
Oh, that's pretty exciting to me. I haven't had a tiger yet, so well,
that's a lion cub. His name was Cebu, and he used to hide behind me when he got scared. So I was volunteering with him for a couple of weeks. But yes, I love to combine volunteering with travel wherever I can. So yeah, I have been very, very fortunate in where I've been able to go. But I'm here to talk about Copilot and where I've been with Copilot. I've always been fascinated by new technology. My previous life, before I became a change manager, I worked in law enforcement. I got exposed to all sorts of different tech there. When I went to corporate life, I'm like, this is a little bit dull, but interesting from a people perspective, but not so much from a tech perspective. So when I heard that Suncorp was going to trial some new AI technology, I was the first one to put my hand up and say, please let me be a part of that. So I was lucky that they selected me as one of 300 people across our organisation, and they threw me a licence to Copilot. So the idea was to see whether Copilot would be viable for our organisation, what sort of use cases it might have, and whether or not it was worthwhile having a wider rollout. I will say the first time we rolled it out, they literally gave me a license and said, there's a Microsoft website that you can maybe get some tips on how to use it.
Well,
yeah. So as a change manager, we did not have a change manager on the rollout. And as a change manager experiencing it, I was like, what? What do I do? So it was very much trial and error. But even with that trial and error, I could see that there was potential. I'm not going to say my trial and error was good. Basically, I used it like a smarter version of Google, and I would just ask it really basic questions and it would give me answers, and I would go, how cool is that? But I also had just joined a massive transformation program across our business. It is the biggest transformation our organisation has ever run. It's also vastly under-resourced, in my opinion, in the change management sphere. So when I joined, we were starting to prepare for our first release, which was going live in New Zealand, but nobody had actually considered whether there were any impacts in Australia. So I had a really short window of time to reach out to 82 business areas across our organisation, about 300 people, and find out how they might be impacted by this first release, and also start to get a bit of a feel for what our impacts were likely to be in our future releases to help with my argument that I need more change managers. So this is where Copilot really started to add value for me. Even with my really basic usage of it, just having it take notes in meetings was an absolute win. It meant that during those meetings, I could be present and actually paying attention in the sessions. I was able to direct questioning better, ask the right questions, and really get the information I needed without having to stop and go, hang on, I need to take that down in my notes. It also meant that after those sessions, and bearing in mind I was running a lot of them, so there was not a lot of time in between, I was able to really quickly get summaries out back to those stakeholders so that we had agreement on what was discussed with very minimal effort on my part. So it was, yeah, for me, an absolute game changer. But along with that, I was also kind of using it as an internal search engine. So this is one of the things that I first loved about Copilot is I don't have to redact things when I'm talking about internal organizational information. Copilot has access to everything I do. So that meant, I don't know about you guys, but in Suncorp, we love an acronym. And what we love is an acronym that's suitable to our little area of Suncorp. But that same acronym could mean something completely different in another part of the business. So, and they like to just talk in acronyms. We don't talk in what the acronyms mean. We just talk in acronyms. It's like a whole different language. So in some of these meetings that I'm in, they would start throwing acronyms at me. And rather than stop the flow of conversation or make myself feel like I was looking stupid asking, what do you mean by that? I could ask Copilot in the middle of the meeting, and Copilot would spit out what the acronym meant in the context of the meeting and the people I was talking to. And then it would also give me, but here is how it is also used in Suncorp, and here's how it's used outside of Suncorp, just so I had that backup in case it wasn't quite right. That made me look really good, I'm going to say. Really helpful. So even with very basic usage of Copilot, I was still able to get value out of it in those early stages. But the project team that was rolling out, I think they then started to realise that maybe people need a little bit of direction to actually start getting some value out of Copilot. So they started running these drop-in sessions. Now, these were not structured, they were not required, they were sort of optional. So if you had time between your normal work, you could come into these drop-in sessions that were once a week, and people just shared how they were using Copilot. I found it really useful. It opened my eyes. So people who had more time on their hands to actually be able to play with it started talking about some things that they were doing, and that sort of opened my eyes to new possibilities. But one of the things that really stuck with me in those early days was somebody said, treat it like a grad student or an intern. If you give it really clear instructions, give it loads of detail and ask it what you want it to do, it will spit out a much better product. You're still going to need to check it because it's still going to make mistakes. Occasionally, it might even make stuff up, but it's going to give you a much better output than if you just ask it really basic questions. So I've been doing that ever since. Once I started thinking about it that way, instead of just having one-off questions to Copilot, my prompts really developed. I started having conversations with Copilot. Two-way conversations almost, and I would chain prompting became a thing where I would start with something and then go, that's not quite right. Can we change it this way? Can we add to it? And I found that I started to get a lot better outputs out of what I was doing. That then gave me a bit more confidence because at that stage, I'm still just doing that in Teams and then occasionally in Word. But I was still, instead of just asking for a summary, I'd ask it for insights from the meetings, or instead of just saying, here's draft me some key messaging, it would tailor the messages to my different audience members and things. So really started to just get that wider usage, and that then gave me confidence to play with it in other parts of M365. So I'm not particularly great at Excel. I'm a change manager. I talk to people in small groups, not like this. But I'm not great at things like pivot tables. But I could basically put a prompt into Copilot and say, I want it to spit out this, and it would just do the pivot table for me, saving me ages of Googling and getting things wrong and stuff like that. So that was really, really helpful. But it wasn't perfect. At that stage, my biggest problem point was probably PowerPoint. I had so many times where I would give it a prompt and it would tell me that it couldn't help with that, or it would spit out absolute complete rubbish in PowerPoint. And it did get to the point where I didn't use it in PowerPoint at all. I just went, it's crap in that, it's great in everything else, I will just use it elsewhere. And we also had, I think, some other people that were involved in that pilot that were running into similar challenges. So a lot of people dropped out of the pilot and just went, it's not useful to me, we're just not going to worry about it. But I was still like, there was still enough there that I wanted it. Unfortunately, our pilot ended and they took my license off me. To say I was devastated, I think you could have heard my screams from the US. Like, I was not happy when they took it off me, especially because we were then now moving into our Australian release on this big transformation project. I have 15,000 stakeholders that I need to manage and I need to tailor change experiences to. And they did increase my resourcing. I'm now a team of 2. But 2 does not go into 15,000 people very well at all. So I started campaigning hard that I want Copilot back. My change leadership was like, yeah, we think it's great, but we can't get it past security. Security, like, oh, we need to run more trials. Meanwhile, I'm about to start our discovery workshops. We had a 6-week window of discovery workshops, 30 workshops over those 6 weeks, each one about 5 hours long. So we started them. I'm screaming every single day, get me Copilot. I'm talking to the project team. Can we pay for it? Like, if change won't pay for it, can the project team pay for it? Surely it's cheaper. You won't give me a change analyst. They cost 50 grand or whatever. Copilot's so much cheaper. Get me Copilot. Eventually, they listened. And in February this year, I finally got Copilot back. We had started these workshops, but I'm going to say on day one of getting my license back, by this stage we're about halfway through the workshops. There are a few that I'd missed because, of course, they all overlap. I ran a prompt through Copilot on 25 hours of recordings. And these workshops, I just want to say, included a whole lot of tech speak with tech people trying to figure out how they were going to integrate things and a whole lot of stuff I don't understand. And I needed to pull out the business nuance from all of that. I put this prompt, which is huge, don't worry about how long it is, but I put this prompt into Copilot across 25 hours of missed meetings. And in under an hour, I had everything that I needed from that 25 hours worth. So in my first day of having my license back, I had saved 24 hours of work, which was a pretty compelling use case. 2 weeks later, my offsider, the other change manager, also had it because I was able to say, this is what we can do with this. But again, like, it's clunky and it's big and it's chunky and it's not a simple, quick question either. But one thing that it was reusable. So I could copy and paste that into the recording of every session that I had missed and get consistent results in the formats that I wanted each time, which meant that I could consolidate all of those into an output that I needed as change manager. So, but I will say, this second time that we've got it, the team that is rolling this out has potentially learned something from that first unsuccessful pilot. And we now have some structured support around there's about 1,000 people across our business that have got licenses this time. But this structured support has made a massive difference. So we have set training sessions where they actually book time in a calendar and allocate people to attend. It makes it so much easier than trying to fit in, do your own research in your lunch break if you have a lunch break. And those sessions were structured. So the very first ones were the really basics. This is where Copilot is. These are some of the really basic things you can do with it. And even in that, I'm like, I didn't know that. I hadn't even thought about, using it to set up my priorities for the week or anything like that. So I started to experiment with that. We then had some experts coming in from Microsoft and other places to talk us through some of those more advanced ways of using Copilot. And it's made a massive difference, not only to myself, but I've seen my offsider who wasn't part of the first pilot and has only gotten his license this time round. So a couple of weeks after I did at the end of Feb, his trajectory of using Copilot has been so much faster than mine, where I had to like fumble around myself. So to reiterate Kirsty's point from earlier, change management is key to actually getting the value out of this. But I want to actually take you through some actual use cases for what I'm using it for at the moment. So comms and engagement, it's one of the big things we do as change managers. I will say I can give Copilot, well, firstly, I can get it to just help create really succinct, catchy key messages for my project. But then I can use it to tailor communications based on that to each of my different stakeholder groups, giving them a much more personalized experience of the change that they're going through, but in the same time or even less than what I used to have to do when I had to do all of this manually. So, which one's this one? Yes. So, but I'm also using it for my planning sessions. So as co-chair of the community of practice, we are running sessions this year where we have a season that covers 3 monthly sessions, and it's one topic across that 3. We're starting to plan our next season, and I'm like, I hate a blank page. I'm not great. Blank page paralysis is real for me. I just started typing into Copilot, gave it this prompt and said, help me out. I need to have a session plan for these next 3 things. Really quickly, it's not perfect and we won't use it verbatim, but it has given my co-chair and I, both of us have massive other projects that we're working on, and this is a side hustle. So Copilot has, in 5 minutes, we had a decent agenda for the next 3 sessions, saving us hours, but also that mental energy of where do I start with this? So really, really useful. Then data and analysis. We all know that AI is awesome for taking large amounts of data and just pulling what you need out of it really quickly, and Copilot is no different. But one of the things that I've done with it is with my stakeholder management, I need to pull the information about different groups of stakeholders in terms of how many people of different types of roles and all of that. So our HR system, not overly user-friendly. I can pull a list and it'll basically come out as a massive spreadsheet with 15,000 names on it. But then any tweaking of that I need to do manually. So I've used Copilot and it's helped me pull out really quickly how many of these types of roles do I have, how many people do I have in these different, of each role do I have in each type of business unit, to help me pull out numbers for how many licenses do I need for this other stuff that we're rolling out really, really quickly. Previously, I would have gone to stakeholder reps in each of those areas and asked them to do it. So what I did in 5 minutes, I would have actually taken weeks because nobody gives it to you straight away. You've got to go out, ask for it. They come back, no, that's not what I wanted. Go back. If they come back, there's weeks of chasing. So absolute game changer in that. This is probably my favorite way of using Copilot at the moment. The fact that you can quickly and easily pull sentiments and insights out of your conversations. So when we are currently with this project about to start our detailed impact analysis discussions. I don't have time to be taking notes, so I'm using Copilot so that I can be more present. But in the middle of it, I can ask it how people are feeling about what I'm talking about. I can gain insights. When I'm in the community of practice, I can get insights about how the audience is feeling about the current topic that we're talking about and presentation, just based on their feedback in the chats or the conversations that have been happening, which really helps you to kind of tailor and be more agile in your presentation and shift focus. If you're starting to get some negative stuff on something, you can go, okay, I need to spend more time to get people over the line with that. And it's also really helpful when we have guest speakers in. I'll often just send out, this is the sentiment that came through, like have a read of the chat, but this is the sentiment, just to give them a bit of summary. So really, really cool for that. And yeah, this is the example prompt that I'm using for my change impact assessments. So I need to present ours in a revolting spreadsheet, and I need to collate information from a bunch of different meetings to put into one spreadsheet. So having everything in the same format is really easy. The other thing that I've been using with this one is my offsider, who is still a little bit earlier on his Copilot journey. I've given him this prompt. So when he's running the meetings, he puts the same thing in and we can collate and have stuff in the same spreadsheet, in the same output, really, really quickly and easily. And it's also given him a bit of an example of, don't just ask it a simple question, pull it out. So it does ask for different types of information in the prompt. There are probably quicker or better ways to ask that question, but for something that we need that's repeatable, I like to have it all in one. It just makes it easier for that particular use case. Also, I can see its potential in training and development. So on the project I'm on at the moment, we have a training team. They will design and deliver all of the training. But I'm actually using it for my own training at the moment. I've just been given Power BI. I didn't get told I was given Power BI. I just happened to look at it and find it was in my access list of tools. So there's no training. So I've asked Copilot to design a training course for me that runs over several weeks, where each bit is no more than 30 minutes. So if I have time on a Friday afternoon, I can go into Copilot and go, right, that's the 30-minute session that I'm doing today, and actually just go through and upskill myself. It's also been really good for pulling together different types of support materials, tailored support materials that are suitable for a particular audience group. And I'm also really pleased to say that since the first time I had it last year and now, it's much, much, much better in PowerPoint. This presentation was created in PowerPoint by Copilot. So even with my really limited understanding of it, it's still able to pull together much better stuff than it used to. So I will definitely be using it when I move on to other projects where I don't necessarily have a dedicated learning team. Copilot is going to be my go-to for designing learning programs and designing the collateral that will support our people. So basically, really, Copilot has been a game changer in terms of what I am able to produce and how I'm able to support our people with nowhere near enough resources. Like but that's not going to be, it's going to be a consistent thing across our organisation. Cost cutting is everywhere. Change management is one of those things that until it doesn't work, people don't think it's valuable. And so we don't always get all of the resources we need. But with Copilot, it's basically like having my own personal change analyst that I can give the busy work to, give the grunt work to, and it frees me up to have those really important stakeholder conversations and actually direct the conversation. And I'm finding that the reactions I'm getting from our stakeholders is really, really positive. They love having tailored communications to them. They love the fact that I'm not constantly stopping them in a meeting to say, hey, I just need to capture that and make sure I've got it down correctly. So really, for me, I'm really excited to see what future stuff comes out of Copilot, what opportunities I have, because I'm still learning how to use it. My prompts, as Kirsty knows, are still not great.
And they're pretty good.
But we're getting there. And so, yeah, really keen to see how much further we can take it, because I think as a change manager, it's a tool that you can't do without.
I particularly like your sentiment. That's something I hadn't thought too much about, how they're feeling. That to me, I was like, oh, cool, I hadn't even thought of doing something like that. And all the work I'm doing, I'm going to ask it, how's it feeling? So does anyone have any questions? I'm having a look at, so Kimberly's saying, so basically Copilot creates 5 PJs in one. So that's always a good thing. So anyone have any questions at all? Either online, you can raise your hand, or in the room of PJ.
You have to record
Hang
your.
on, let me just give you this so that online can hear you as well.
Hi, I'm Gamma. Do you have to record your meetings for Copilot to work?
Yeah,
Or
you have to have
something similar?
the transcription running. We tend to run both. So I do always ask. And sometimes if it's a conversation that's potentially going to be a little bit sensitive, I will say, look, I'm just running this so that I can take the Copilot notes out of it later. I'll delete the recording if you want me to, but that's just what I'm using it for. And I've never had anyone say no. So most people, as we get more awareness, especially in our organisation where Copilot's very new, but as we get more awareness, people are now like asking me if they can record it so that I can run Copilot over and give them insights out of it afterwards. So yeah, it's one of those things that some people thought might be a bit, but it hasn't been an issue.
Which I've even used it in places.
Hang on, Lily.
I used it in places like Kenya and over, and I took very rudimentary microphones with me, which I placed on the table. It's still did more than good job of recording all of it and enough data for me to do all the analysis.
Yeah,
Better than I thought.
it is very good. And I will find like one of the, I'm not going to call it a limitation, but one thing that can be a little harder is if you've got a group of people in a room, it's not yet great at determining who's who in a room where everyone is sharing a microphone. But we're getting around that a little bit is if I know I need to, I'll say as the thing, I'll say thank you so-and-so. And then it goes, okay, that's who that question was from. Because I will often when I'm going back over something, say, tell me who asked the question so that I can go back. So yes, that's just one of the things where it's in a room, it's not great at knowing who's who. I don't know who's who sometimes. So
Not unless you've got everyone logging in from their laptop as well in the room, or you have a device that, there's devices that you can actually use that will recognise people in the room based on AI. But you have to have very specific devices that will do that. Just recognising and joining in.
there you go. The workaround is just to use the person's name in your response to them.
Yes, that's it, exactly. Suddenly.
We'll sort of train people that if you or have a bit of just meeting etiquette that says if you're going to ask a question, can you say your name and role or something, and then so you don't as the moderator you don't have to do it, but yeah, as long as it's in the transcript.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's a really good way of doing it.
And just on the devices, guys, John Barrett from Microsoft here.
Yes.
If you've got a Teams meeting room device, there's a new feature where you can actually, as a user, you can train Teams on your voice. And then if you're joining a meeting and you've pre-trained it on your voice and you're using a Teams meeting room device, Copilot will make an attempt to recognize who you are based on the training that you've given Teams.
That is awesome.
Having problems. Just joking.
Yeah, so it's out there. The technology is there to be able to use, but not all organisations will have that. So then it comes down to the etiquette that we have as part of the program, especially when we're trying to use Copilot and get it to the point where we're going to have the output that we actually need for Copilot to help us, or you remember it yourself as you don't come back to your notes, a week later or something. Go, who said that?
The good thing about the transcription is, and Copilot will point to the place in the transcription, and the transcription I can sync with the recording, and then I can actually, if I've missed it somehow, I can go back to the recording to that bit without having to wade through hours of recording. So,
okay, Kimberly online has a question. Kimberly, come off.
Hello. Thank you. That was fantastic. I just wanted to ask, so with Copilot saving you time so that you're not having to do all of that repetitive, low value work, what time and opportunities has that actually freed up for you as a professional and as a person as well? Because I feel like you're really loving, getting back to all of your roots around what your skills and what your talents are, and really getting to the core of your role. But I'd love to hear from you how that's transformed you as a professional and as a person.
I'll start by as a person. I now get lunch breaks. And I get to go home at a reasonable hour,
Which is fabulous for a lot of people who've got, when you've got kids, to give you back work-life balance is huge.
Yeah, and I will say with the rollout that we're doing this time around, where we've got 1,000 people, it's been the number one benefit that people have actually called out, is that I now have my work-life balance back, and I can take a lunch break. I can take that hour a week to do a bit of personal development. The other one is in the tailoring of what I send out. So previously, I just would have done one generic communications, and it's got all the information in it for everyone. Well, I'll catch up with you later if I have time to give you more nuanced stuff. Whereas with this extra time, I can actually give Copilot the generic, and it can spit out, this is what you need for our claims people, this is what you need for frontline, this is what the tech people or the data people are interested in. So it's really helping to give people a much more tailored response.
Yeah, just bring the microphone down. Here we go.
Hi, Pamela Skin. I'm really interested in the security side of it, meaning that I've heard a lot of different companies talk about they're worried about names and the personal information being used. And obviously that was one of the big barriers for you to have it taken away and not get it back again. So what changed, or how do you get around that in a company?
So I will say Suncorp as a company, huge security concerns. We deal with a lot of customer data. I have not put any customer data into Copilot and don't intend to. It's not something, I don't deal with actual personal customer data in my role. But I will say we have a Copilot locked down. So it's Copilot in Suncorp is not being used to train up Copilot everywhere else, or the general AI. It's very much locked to my individual access level. So if there's something that I'm not allowed to see in the Suncorp environment, which I'm sure there's plenty, I can't see it, Copilot can't see it, Copilot can't share it with me. So it's very much locked down to my personal access level. We do have general rules around personal information, that we don't put personal information into anything outside of our customer management system. So it doesn't go into Teams, it doesn't go into Word or anything else. It doesn't go on our SharePoint site. So it's very much locked down. So that sort of got us around that part with, because Copilot doesn't interact with our customer policy management systems or anything like that. So yeah, I think there would be very different use cases. I don't think at this stage we're looking at rolling it out to any of our frontline teams that deal with that customer data. In terms of organisational data, I don't share any of it outside. Copilot doesn't share any of it outside. So our security team is relatively happy with it. One thing they're still arguing about, and I desperately want, is Copilot Studio. So currently they're still a bit iffy about Copilot Studio. I really want it because I can see how fantastic it would be to be able to build my own agents and share them more broadly across the organisation. But that's something that we haven't got over the security line yet. We're working on it, and I'm waiting, not so patiently.
Thank you. John, yep.
John Barrett from Microsoft here, sorry, I'm the vendor. I'll just make a quick couple of bullet point comments. You said Suncorp hasn't locked down from a security point of view, but actually all Copilots worldwide, you can't remove security. There's this baseline level of security and privacy called Enterprise Data Protection. It's another acronym, EDP. But Enterprise Data Protection applies to all Microsoft Copilots and Copilot chats for all customers. So that's the baseline that you can't go below. You may have done, you mentioned some other things that you do internally, like not putting private data into the Teams meetings and chats, and that's a choice that you make about how you do with the content. But in terms of the baseline service, and because of that EDP, it also means that anything that any customer is doing inside Copilot, none of that is ever used to train the engine. The engine comes pre-trained, and no customer information is ever shared back out to the internet, to Microsoft, to the internet, or to any third parties. But there's a thing called enterprise data protection that sort of lays that out in nauseating facts.
Yeah.
Which is cool, but also from a user perspective, sometimes I wish that it would learn from, if I told it something yesterday, I wish it would remember that today, in terms of, some of the information that I like to share with it about my stakeholders and stuff. So there's pluses and minuses to everything being locked down the way it is, I think.
That's true. It is true. And let's see, is there any other questions from online? Okay, question from Microsoft. Here we go. Do they experience resistance from organisations under the banner of security, or is it lessening over time? Okay, on hand. So it is. Do they experience resistance? Do you, Microsoft, experience resistance from organisations under the banner of its security, or is it getting better over time? Is what they're saying. Okay, so let me hand.
I don't know. It's asking that, but I think that there's two things. I think every customer should always do their security assessments and their privacy PIAs, privacy impact assessments. We encourage customers to do that because you need to do your own due diligence. So I would say, as a Microsoft person working with customers, we encourage you do your security assessment, do your privacy impact assessment. There's certain things that we do in the service, but there's other things that might be in your environment that you also maybe need to consider in terms of operational environment and usage. So I encourage you. I think it's still hard, but for good reasons, because every customer with new technology needs to do these assessments, especially and evaluate risk, etc. I think we've done some good work in improving our baseline capabilities and controls in that area. But it doesn't take away from the need for us to work with the customers in a shared responsibility model to work through all the issues and concerns with security, privacy, legal, operations, data sovereignty, and then get to a point where you as the customer decide it's okay or not okay to use. So I don't know, hopefully that answers the question.
I've got a question for you, John.
Here we go. Yeah, now that we have Microsoft in the room.
It's a question that on the topic of resistance, one of the key questions that seems to come up anytime we talk in our organisation about any form of AI, not just Copilot, is the environmental impacts. And it's one of those ones that I never know how to answer. So I'm just wondering if you can talk from Microsoft's perspective about anything to do with like the environmental impact of running something like a Copilot.
Oh, you mean like the physical environment, like the world?
Yes.
Energy and.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
that's a very good question. I'll give you a high level answer. So Microsoft is committed, and we have white papers and statements on this. We're committed to trying to do our best to reduce our physical environmental impact in our data centers. That obviously is a concern, because as all companies are spinning up AI infrastructure, that basically means data centers are consuming power and water and heat, generating heat, consuming power and water. We're really committed to that from an environmental point of view at Microsoft, as are vendors. We're doing that in a few ways. We're really trying to optimize the way that we run our data centers. We're also investing in technology around improved chipsets, both Microsoft first party and working with chip makers third party, so that the more efficient chipsets consume less power, and also software optimization. And all of that goes together. But our aim is to deliver great AI services, but at the same time try and minimise the short and long-term environmental impact. Another interesting thing is, last point is that I think what you're going to see is soon AI services are going to also take start to offload some of the processing to the local devices. So you're seeing some local devices come out now that have AI chipsets in them that are taking some of the processing away from the data center and into the local device and splitting the processing that way. But it's something that we are serious about. And we consider that one of the things under our responsible AI model.
Yes, yeah, I know that it comes up. I get it all the time. Even when I was on my flight, you know that on my Qantas flight, I had someone from legal on there and started to ask me about it. And is it sorry?
Is the session finished? Or was it-
No, not yet. Still going.
I could get access to the response.
So then the other thing I regularly get as well is same questions, but on top of that, it's like, well, some of the stuff that's being done in big data for the environment and giving us information to be able to act on it, that alone and some of the shifts and changes I've seen from environmental impacts, you kind of then go, you know, if we got more knowledge, we can then work with everything a little better. So I'm starting to see some shifts and some impressive stuff that's happening and what the MVPs are actually doing, you know, right around the globe to help in that space. It's quite significant because we're all kind of tend to be very self-conscious of these, or not so, but very conscious of these things as specialists ourselves, because we get those questions all the time too. So it is a good question and is important. If we have no more questions, I will move on to some of the what's new.